Now, if you're not familiar with it, an application security assessment essentially entails working with someone who's building some sort of application to find the different security flaws that they might have introduced into their technology and help them eradicate them. This is our core area of expertise, and this particular customer had a few goals. Their surface goal was they wanted to gain acceptance by a major US movie studio so that that movie studio would use their application on their upcoming feature films. This application hosts media assets, and it's a perfect fit for the movie business. But their deeper goal was they wanted to fix the problems. They wanted to roll up their sleeves. They wanted to look at the warts. They wanted to live in that uncomfortable moment. That's a pretty common characteristic amongst all of our customers. They all share that mission orientation. So here we were about partway through the security assessment with this particular vendor, and I found myself in Burbank, California, on a sunny, bright, beautiful day, as they all tend to be in Southern California. And I'm about 5 minutes early to go into a meeting with the studio. Now, we have a great relationship with this studio. They see us as a trusted advisor. We help them make decisions about different products that they might select, and in particular, they wanted to talk to us about this individual vendor. So I'm about 5 minutes early, I'm standing outside, I'm enjoying the sunshine, and my phone rings. And on the phone is the security analyst on my team who's working on this particular project. And I answer it, and he says, "Ted, I know you're about to go into the meeting with the studio. Can I borrow you for about 2 minutes?" Now, this started piquing my interest, because if he knows I'm going into the meeting and I only have a couple minutes and he still thinks I need to hear what he has to say in that exact moment, this might be interesting. So I look at my watch and say, "Yeah, I've got about 5 minutes. What do you got?" And he says, "Well, we're partly through the assessment, and we just found that the application is vulnerable to URL tampering." Now, if you don't know what this is, URL tampering is essentially a way that you can exploit a web application. If you can envision the URL bar, it says www. whatever the site's name is, .com, / and then there's a bunch of gibberish. URL tampering investigates whether you can manipulate that gibberish in such a way to get back something you should not have access to. That's what we found. So he says, "Ted, we found that it was vulnerable to URL tampering, and we got back a video file. But not just any video file." He says, "You know that really famous lingerie brand that produces that really famous runway show?" And I said, "I'm familiar with it. What about it?" He says, "Well, you know, at these types of events, there's always a camera running in the background, and they just capture everything behind the scenes, and then later they edit it down to what we ultimately see." And I said, "Well, actually, I didn't know that. I'm learning from you. You just taught me something new. But what about it?" He says, "That is what we found. We found the raw, unedited footage of some of the most famous models in the world, completely naked." Whoa. So, of course, there's significant privacy implications now for those individual models. They didn't sign up for that. But there's a much deeper impact here. The impact being that this validates the element of our threat model that says there is a compelling financial incentive for a profit-motivated attacker to go after this system. Because you see gossip sites, someone like TMZ, they would pay huge money to get their hands on this particular asset. So a profit-motivated attacker would want to attack in order to be the one to sell it. Well, in this exact moment of where I'm realizing there's enormous privacy violation, this enormous issue associated with the threat model here. As the wheels are starting to turn, how are we going to help this vendor deal with this challenge? How are they going to articulate it to the studio? How's the studio going to react to it? How do I message it to them? In that exact moment, who walks up? My contact from the studio. He sees that I'm on the phone, so he just gives me a wave and goes right on into the building. I can only imagine what my face looked like. It's probably something like. But here's what's interesting. This sounds like a really, really bad thing, but I assure you, this was a profoundly good thing. You see, this issue existed whether or not this customer hired us to find it. But because we found it, they could do something about it. And do something about it they did. We were able to advise them on how to fix it. They then were able to implement that fix and now advocate to the customer, to the studio, about not only how they've identified and fixed issues, but they're able to live their mission, live the security mission, and say, look how deep we go. We look at the warts. Sometimes that mission orientation alone is sufficient to gain confidence. As a result, the studio decided to do business with this particular vendor. This was an amazing outcome for that vendor. That vendor now got to count one of the largest, most influential companies in the world as their customer. But it was also a profoundly valuable outcome for the studio. The studio now got to take advantage of the hugely innovative technology that this vendor had created. They now could develop movies better, faster, cheaper, and they could pursue their own storytelling mission.